on World News Tonight. A narrow escape. Power cut to Russian-held nuclear plant restored. Ukraine president says a nuclear disaster was dodged. A feeder weight to be unleashed. Judges decide to partially release the Mar-a-Lago search warrant of feeder weight. Extreme drought. Half of China hit by drought in worst heat wave on record as China continues with cloud seeding. And it's Jurassic World. Global tours begin as dinosaurs come to life in London.
This is Derana World News Tonight. Reporting from Colombo, here is Suzanne Shanali.
A very good evening and thank you for joining us on World News Tonight, and we begin with the updates on the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said the world narrowly avoided a radiation disaster as electricity to Ukraine's Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant was cut for hours due to Russian shelling in the area, allegations that Moscow denied.
It's the first time in its history that the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant has been disconnected from the power grid. Ukraine's nuclear energy provider, Energoatom, decided to cut off the two remaining reactors, saying that nearby fires had caused damage to overhead power lines. Ukraine and Russia have been accusing each other of launching strikes around Europe's largest nuclear power plant, which is currently occupied by Moscow's forces. Kyiv claims they're stocking heavy weapons inside the building, accusations that Russia denies. But fears of a nuclear accident continue to grow as tension builds. In France, President Emmanuel Macron met with the head of the International Atomic Energy Agency, Raphael Grossi, asking that experts gain access to the site as soon as possible. The United Nations has meanwhile called for demilitarization of the power plant, which in normal times accounts for a fifth of Ukraine's electricity production.
In the latest war games between China and Taiwan, Taiwan announced a record jump in defense spending for next year as self-governing democracy eyes new fighter jets and anti-ship missiles to deter a Chinese military invasion.
Taiwan has proposed a record increase in defense spending for next year, weeks after China staged its largest ever military exercises around the island, which it views as its territory. The cabinet has pledged over $19 billion, a 13.9% boost on 2022. The budget includes funds for new fighter jets and anti-ship missiles, as well as special funds for the Defence Ministry. China carried out these war games after US House Speaker Nancy Pelosi visited Taiwan earlier this month. Beijing viewed the trip as Washington attempting to interfere in its internal affairs. Taiwan's budget proposals, which must be approved by Parliament, mark the sixth consecutive year that the island has grown its defence spending. The Defence Ministry said in a statement the budget gave full consideration to the, quote, enemy threat and was equivalent to 2.4% of Taiwan's projected GDP. China has been continuing its military activities near Taiwan, though on a reduced scale.
A U.S. federal judge gives the Justice Department until tomorrow to make a public redacted copy of the affidavit that backed its application for the search warrant in Donald Trump's home. This comes after the Justice Department submitted its court sections it wants blacked out to protect witnesses, law enforcers, and methods used in the investigation. And now the question remains as to how much the redacted version will enclose.
New tonight. Granted in part, a decision from the Florida federal magistrate to unseal by noon tomorrow a redacted copy of the affidavit used to authorize the controversial Mar-a-Lago search, where FBI agents seized 11 sets of classified information from former President Trump's seaside home. Mr. Trump has demanded the whole affidavit be made public. Late today, former Trump senior advisor Jared Kushner agreed.
So I think what the judge do is release all the information. This way people can know whether there's a serious allegation or this is more manufactured.
Parts of the search warrant affidavit will be blacked out. The judge finding government lawyers made a compelling argument that releasing all of it would identify witnesses and law enforcement and reveal strategy as well as sources and methods. But new information will become public, as the judge described the redactions as narrowly tailored. After President Biden insisted Wednesday he had no warning about the search.
I didn't have any advance notice. None. Zero. Not one single bit.
Mr. Trump mocked that response on his social media and lashed out again at the Justice Department and FBI, claiming their investigation is politically motivated.
A dozen countries, including South Korea, the US and Japan, have agreed to facilitate the safe and secure utilization of civilian nuclear reactors as part of the so-called FIRST program. The joint statement was made during the 2022 NPT Review Conference in New York City.
During the 2022 NPT Review Conference in New York on Thursday, countries including South Korea, the US, Japan, and 9 others agreed on facilitating the safe and secure utilization of civilian nuclear reactors in what's been dubbed the FIRST program. FIRST, which stands for Foundational Infrastructure for the Responsible Use of Small Modular Reactor Technology, provides the foundation for partner countries to take advantage of advanced nuclear technologies and upcoming innovations in reactor design to meet energy security and climate goals. It also calls for the highest international standards and guidelines for safety, security, and non-proliferation. The joint statement issued by the 12 countries also welcomed safe and secure growth for nuclear power, noting that nuclear energy not only provides a clean energy supply, but also supports local job growth, energy security, air pollution, and carbon reduction goals, and global clean technology innovation. However, it stressed the peaceful use of nuclear energy to help meet UN Sustainable Development Goals in line with the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons.
A crippling drought exacerbated by a record heat wave have spread across half of China and reached the normally frigid Tibetan plateau, according to official data released ahead of more staring temperatures.
Dry and cracked-up soil surrounds Luxingdong Island. The pagoda-topped rock is normally surrounded by water in August, in the middle of China's biggest freshwater lake.
Usually the water comes up to there. The highest level reach is here. Last summer we had water up to here.
This is what it looked like 2 years ago when the region was hit by floods. Poyang Lake's water levels fluctuate as floodwaters from the Yangtze River flow into it during the normally wet summer before receding dramatically in the dry autumn and winter. This year, the lake has already shrunk to a fifth of its size. China is experiencing the hottest summer on record, with a heat wave now stretching over 70 days. It's breaking records almost every day, with temperatures reaching mid-40s degrees Celsius. In Chongqing, some residents are sleeping in air-conditioned shopping centres and metro stations to keep cool. Large cities have had to dim light due to hydropower shortages. The extreme weather is threatening this year's harvest in one of the world's largest agricultural exporters.
Look, these peppers are dried and will die soon. I lost half of the vegetable crops compared to normal times.
In the southern Hubei province, authorities have begun firing chemicals into the sky to induce rain. The cloud seeding project is set to continue for the next 3 months in a desperate effort to protect crops.
It's going to a short commercial break. We'll be back soon with more world news. Welcome back to World News Tonight. A few weeks after declaring victory over COVID-19, North Korea reported 4 new cases of what it dubs a fever. It's unclear why the regime would be so public about the developments after making the triumphant announcement. Some experts believe as these new cases are near the Chinese border, it might be a warning to people in the area.
On Thursday, North Korea's state-run Korean Central News Agency reported 4 new cases of what they've been calling a fever. that were detected 2 days earlier in Yanggangdo province. The North Korean report said officials immediately locked down the area and mobilized teams to carry out tests and find the cause of the illness. It was on August 10th that Kim Jong-un declared victory over COVID-19 and lifted the regime's emergency virus measures, only 3 months after the regime first admitted it had an outbreak. Some experts say admitting a few cases could lend some credibility both to the North's claims of victory and its virus response. Meanwhile, an official at South Korea's Unification Ministry told reporters Thursday that there's still the possibility of a resurgence of the virus in North Korea. The official reiterated that South Korea is still willing to provide medical aid should the regime respond to its repeated offers.
Giorgia Meloni is expected to become Italy's next prime minister in the September 25th general elections as a far-right Brothers of Italy party rides high in the polls, capitalizing on widespread disillumination with the status quo.
On her campaign poster, Giorgia Meloni looks reassuring. The leader of the extreme right-wing party, Brothers of Italy, has reason to smile. Her party is currently ahead in the polls and has been forecast to gain 25% of votes in the upcoming election. In just the last 5 years, the number of supporters of the Brothers of Italy party has increased sixfold. Among these new members are people like Vincenzo, who are disillusioned by the traditional parties. He's hoping that this 45-year-old from Rome can bring political stability.
In Italy, we have seen too many different governments come and go. I think that this time could perhaps be different. We need to try something new.
Last Tuesday, Giorgia Meloni chose to launch her campaign on safe ground. Here, in the Marche region, already won over from the left in 2020, a crowd of over 1,000 people are cheering her on, where the leader of the unique opposition party is presenting herself as the only credible alternative.
Our nation is a nation that needs a government that will build without cronyism, people without a boss, a government of people that don't owe anything to anyone, people who cannot be bought.
Giorgia Meloni presents herself as a true Italian and as a Christian mother. She favours more stringent security measures and is strongly opposed to immigration.
I'm a woman, and I have to say that I don't feel safe going home after 9 at night. It really is a huge problem. Uncontrolled immigration is a real issue.
Beyond the Italian borders, her message and decidedly Eurosceptic stance are causing alarm. A paradox, given that Italy is about to receive €200 billion from Europe as part of the EU recovery plan.
Former world's #1 Novak Djokovic will miss the US Open after he said that he will not be able to travel to New York for the tournament, having chosen not to be vaccinated against COVID-19.
Novak Djokovic, the former world #1, announced on Thursday that he will not compete at this year's US Open. Djokovic up till now has refused to get vaccinated against COVID-19, making it impossible for him to enter the United States, where travelers are still required to show proof of vaccination. In a post on Twitter, he wrote, quote, "Sadly, I will not be able to travel to NY this time for US Open. Good luck to my fellow players. I'll keep in good shape and positive spirit and wait for an opportunity to compete again." The Serbian previously said he was prepared to miss Grand Slam tournaments that require participating players to be vaccinated against COVID.
Is it good to be home?
His position led to the 35-year-old being unable to defend his Australian Open crown earlier in the year, after being deported from the country over his vaccination status. The United States Tennis Association described Djokovic's absence from the U.S. Open, where he has hoisted the trophy 3 times and reached the final on 6 other occasions, as unfortunate, but looked forward to having him back at Flushing Meadows next year.
After annual rains that have left dozens dead in Sudan, thousands of people in the farming town and surrounding villages have lost homes and property in what they say is the worst flooding in a decade.
Thousands of people in the farming town of El Managil and surrounding villages have lost homes and property in what they say is the worst flooding in a decade. The Sudanese Red Crescent says irrigation ditches in the farming area have overflowed and that more than 100 villages have been cut off and 10,000 homes have been damaged or collapsed. Some 3,000 people have looked for shelter in makeshift camps. Nationwide, more than 150,000 people have been affected by flooding so far this year. It doubles the number at the same stage of last year's rainy season, according to the United Nations. Residents said they have had limited access to drinking water or food, and most assistance cut off by deep water in some places. Some engineering soldiers were seen trying to clear the main road in El Managil, but locals said they have been struggling to clear the water mostly on their own. Sudan's Sovereign Council head Abdel Fattah el-Burhan on Sunday said the government would provide the necessary assistance to El Managil, including clearing ditches, fixing the main road to the area and providing compensation.
Welcome back to World News Tonight, and for more news, let's take you around the world in a minute. The California Air Resources Board has voted to adopt sweeping regulations to require all new cars sold in the state to be electric or plug-in hybrid by 2035, in a move to completely phase out gasoline cars. Japan's National Police Agency chief has announced his resignation. Itaru Nakamura said that he takes full responsibility for the assassination of former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, and the organization needs a fresh start. A three-story building in India's northern Uttar Pradesh state caught on fire, killing at least 5 people, while 2 others were rescued. The Australian federal government appointed a former judge of the High Court of Australia to head an inquiry into former Prime Minister Scott Morrison's secret appointments into some ministries during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. And that's all the news we got for you tonight. Join us again on Monday for more news around the globe. In case you missed to watch any of the stories we aired tonight, you can always rewatch by catching us on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/otherderana English. And finally, we leave you tonight with the news for dinosaur enthusiasts and fans of the Jurassic Park franchise, as Jurassic World, the exhibition, opens its doors in London. Stay safe, have a great weekend.